Dear students, in this lecture, we'll discuss Module 5 of our subject Responsible Engineering. Module 5 is about responsibilities and rights of an engineer. If you see the syllabus, towards the first half we have responsibilities of engineers, and towards the second half we have rights of an engineer. Now to start with responsibilities of engineers, we are all engineers, and as engineers we have internal responsibility towards employer and external responsibility towards public. Now in internal responsibility, the main responsible factors included are collegiality, loyalty, respect for authority, and collective bargaining. And in external responsibility, we have confidentiality, conflicts of interest, and occupational crime. Now, these are some of the important responsibilities exhibited or held by engineers in society. We shall discuss in detail each of these responsibility. Now, to start with, we'll start with the internal responsibilities of engineer. The first one being the collegiality, which means companionship among employees or individuals working within an institution or an organization. Now, it is also a tendency to give support and cooperation to the colleagues. As far as an organization or institution is concerned, teamwork is very important, and this factor collegiality is taken as one of the important factors for teamwork to be effective and successful. Or this collegiality can be stated as a kind of connectedness or commitment to the goals and values of the profession. Now, there are two aspects for which collegiality is being encouraged. One is it promotes the aims of professions, and it works for the goodness of public and society. In addition to this, we have three major elements of collegiality, namely respect to ideas and work of others, commitment to moral principles, and connectedness. Now, what is this respect, commitment, and connectedness? Respect is giving value for someone who has professional expertise and has devoted time to achieve goals of his profession. That means valuing one's colleague for their professional experience or expertise and the devotion to the social goods promoted by the profession. That is respect, giving respect to your colleague. Next one is commitment, meaning that is a devotion to a particular work or task concerning the overall goodness of society and public. Means sharing a devotion to the moral ideas inherent in the practice of engineering. That is commitment. Now coming to connectedness, which is the third element of collegiality, it means unity among engineers that induces cooperation, coordination, and a mutual support. Now it can also be stated as a complete absence of egoism. So this is what connectedness is. So these are the three major elements of collegiality: respect, commitment, and connectedness. Now, in addition to this, we have some negative aspects of collegiality or some disadvantages of collegiality. In a teamwork, there can be conflicts or disagreements. There can be different opinions among participants, or there can be display of lack of interest between employees. So all these things misuse and distorts collegiality, which will eventually slow down the progress of a company. So in order to have a smooth running of a company or an organization, negative aspects of collegiality should be eliminated. Next, we'll see the second internal responsibility of an engineer, which is loyalty. Now, how can we define loyalty? Loyalty is defined as being faithful to one's work or colleague, or it is a quality of being true and faithful in one's support. Now, in an institution where there is an employer and employee, the employer must be loyal to all the employees, and all the employees should be loyal to the employer also. Now, all the engineers working in that organization or institution must be considered as faithful agents or trustees for the betterment of the organization. Now, in this aspect, you have two senses of loyalty. The first one is agency loyalty, and second one is identification or attitude loyalty. Now, what is this agency loyalty? I'll make this clear with an example. Suppose that there are a group of people doing a particular task, and they are paid for their task. They are cooperating with their colleagues and following authority within organization. Even if people may not like their job and hate their employer, they still perform their duties. That comes under agency loyalty. That is, these are set of people who do their job, hate their employer, still perform their duties, who will be paid, who will be cooperating with their colleagues and following the authority within the organization. That is agency loyalty. Now, what about identification loyalty? This includes moral principles or values such as attitude, emotion, and sense of personal identity of persons. Now, here, whenever the group of people are doing a particular task or work, they are doing with full willingness, with personal attachment towards the work. So, this is doing work with moral values. So, people who don't like their job or employer but still do their duties will not come under this category. So, that is a difference between agency loyalty and identification loyalty. Now, what are the duties of a loyal employee? A loyal employee must be honest in making decisions and estimates. He must protect confidential information. He must avoid conflicts of interest. He should inform employers of any possible conflicts of interest, and he should admit one's errors. So, these are some of the duties of loyal employee. There are many other points you can add. I'm just summarizing a few points. Now comes the third internal responsibility of the engineer, which is respect for authority. What is authority? It is actually a state to make and take decisions. It is the right to direct work for others and the right to give orders to others. Now, there are two types of authority. First one is institutional authority and second one is expert authority. Now, what is institutional authority? Take, for example, the case of our college. We have a management. The management has given the authority to the principal or the chair to manage all the activities and programs of our college. So, the person to whom the authority or duties are given should be a qualified individual in order to meet the institutional objectives. And if the person is not qualified or inefficient or ineffective or incompetent, it can even lead to the failure of the institution. So that is institutional authority, the institutional right given to a person to exercise power based on the resources of institution. And authority is exercised by making policy decisions, allocating resources, issuing orders, carrying out actions and giving recommendations. Now, what is expert authority? Expert authority is authority of a leadership. For example, take the case of a mentor or a counselor or a project guide. These people will be having rich expertise, knowledge and skill to perform a specific task or a job and to give good advice. So this can be referred to as expert authority. Now comes the fourth and the last internal responsibility of an engineer, which is collective bargaining. Collective bargaining means you're bargaining collectively. And this happens usually when there are negotiations about working condition in terms of employment between an employer and a group of employees with a view to reaching an agreement for employees' benefit. And this is usually done with union members of an organization. So this is termed as collective bargaining. So with this, we have discussed all the internal responsibilities of an engineer. We'll come to the external responsibilities of an engineer. The first one being confidentiality. Now, what is confidentiality? It is keeping information as secrets. You are not disclosing the information to anyone else in the organization. You are keeping the information on the employer and clients as secrets. So it is considered as one of the important aspects of teamwork also. The next external responsibility of the engineer is conflicts of interest. Now, what is this conflict of interest? I'll make this clear with an example. Suppose a professor is working in a college and he is given the task to nominate students for the post of college captain. Assume that the professor's son is studying in the same college, and the professor feels that his son is having the qualities to be nominated for the post of the college captain. And at the same time, he doesn't have the freedom to express his interest. Now, there comes a conflict of interest. In such cases, he will hand over this duty to someone else. So, a professional conflict of interest is a situation where the professional has an interest that, if pursued, might prevent him from meeting his obligations to his employer. That is conflicts of interest. Now, the last one is occupational crime. What is occupational crime? A very familiar term for all of us. Doing crime in occupation is referred to as occupational crime. Now, these are illegal acts committed through a person's lawful employment, and if it is committed by a professional, you call it as white collar crime. Now, these are some examples of occupational crime: price fixing, endangering lives, industrial espionage, and bootlegging. So, these are some examples of occupational crime that shouldn't happen in any kind of occupation. So with this, we have completed the internal and external responsibilities of an engineer. Now we are moving to the rights of engineers. So the different types of rights for engineers are human rights, employee rights, and professional rights. Now for the syllabus, we have employee rights and professional rights. Now what is employer rights? Suppose I'm a teacher and I'm working in a school. I have the right to get the salary from the organization or the school, and I should have all the benefits put forward by the school or the institution. I should get increments, etc. etc. So these rights are termed as contractual employee rights, which comes under employee rights. So contractual employee rights means rights under a contract. So the example which I cited is an example for contractual rights. Now, opposite to this, you have non-contractual employee rights. That means the rights not exactly under the contract, but you have the right to do uh, uh, anything that the institution permits. That is right to privacy, right to conduct programs externally. So these are non-contractual rights which comes under employee rights. So these are the rights that apply or refer to the status or position of an employee, which can be distinguished into contractual and non-contractual employee rights. Also, the provision for basic human rights and professional rights are also made to these employees. Now, the next one is professional rights. If the rights possessed by virtue of being professionals are done having moral responsibilities, we call that rights as professional rights. Now, a professional of an organization will attain these professional rights, which can be executed or exercised without violating moral and human values and human rights. Now, the examples for professional rights are right to form and express professional judgment, right to refuse to participate in unethical activities, right to receive remuneration for professional services, right to warn the public about danger, right to talk publicly about the job, etc. etc. So these are the major rights an engineer has, that is employee rights and professional rights. Now comes intellectual property rights, or you call it as IPR. And what is intellectual property rights? Now, intellectual property means it is an information or in original expression that derives the original value from creative ideas which has a commercial value. Or intellectual property can be called as an asset which can be bought or sold, licensed and exchanged. Let me cite one example for this. Consider that you are a creator of a product. Okay, the product can be anything, a machine or software or any hardware, image, etc. etc. This intellectual property right is given to that creator for the creation of his mind or intellect. Now, having this intellectual property rights, the holder can exercise a monopoly on the use of the item for a specified period. Okay. This rights prevent others from using, dealing, tampering, duplicating, imitating with a product without prior permission from the creator also. So the legal rights on the intellectual property created are known as intellectual property rights, and these are approved and regulated by the law on IPR of the country. Now, according to TRIPS, all the members of World Trade Organization have to comply with the enforcement of IPR laws. So, we have discussed employee rights, professional rights, and intellectual property rights. Now, these intellectual property rights have 7 elements, very important elements. They are patents, industrial designs, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets, design of integrated circuits, and geographical indications. So, these are the important elements of IPR. Now comes the last topic of the syllabus, which is discrimination. Now, what is discrimination? It's a very familiar term for all of us. It is unequal treatment of an individual in an organization, intentionally or unintentionally. So, it is not considered as a justice as far as moral values are concerned, because it violates the fundamental human rights of fair and equal treatment. So, to have a peaceful environment or peaceful working environment in an organization or an institution, all the employees should be considered equal, or they should be treated equally for smooth running of the organization. So with this, we have completed the responsibilities and rights of an engineer of module 5. Thank you for your patient listening.